Okay, so now we shall start the meeting with the Rotary prayer song. So may you sing along with me as we begin our prayer with our meeting with the Rotary prayer song. Inspire your parents, Lord, we ask to lead us people first, to dignify the daily task and serve in selflessness. For fellowship, nature, we offer thanks to thee. We pray that it will be a help to spread about your stream. Amen. Hello, parents. Shall we recite the four-way test? Shall we recite the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do? 1, is it the truth? 2, is it fair to all concerned?
All concerned.
3, will it build
goodwill and better friendships?
4, will it be beneficial,
to all concerned?
Fellow Rotarians, may we abide by the four-way test in all our life endeavors. Shall we drink a toast to the Republic of Ghana? To the Republic of Ghana. Fellow Rotarians, I want to welcome you all once again to our meeting. That's the meeting of the Rotary Club of Tema Meridian in Ghana. And for all our foreign guests, we want to welcome you. We want to take apologies from members. Are there any apologies? Secretary, did you receive any apologies?
None from my side.
All right. So in the absence of any apologies, we move to the next, which is the four-way test. So I will invite our past president, Antoinette, to take us through the four-way test of the things we say. No, sorry, of the object of Rotary. Our PP Antoinette, can you please take us through the object of Rotary? Thank you. Past President Antoinette, please unmute your mic if you can hear me.
The object of Rotary.
All right.
The object of Rotary is to encourage and foster the ideal of service as a basis of worthy enterprise, and in particular to encourage and foster 1, the development of acquaintance as an opportunity for service. 2, high ethical standards in business and professions, the recognition of the worthiness of all useful occupations, and the dignifying of each Rotarian's occupation as an opportunity to serve society. 3, the application of the ideal of service in each Rotarian's personal, business, and community life. And 4, the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace through a world fellowship of business and professional persons united in the ideal of service. Rotarian President, I'm done.
Thank you so much, Past President Antoinette, for taking us through the object of Rotary. So I will ask our secretary to take us through the few announcements for tonight.
Hello, good evening, Rotarian President, Rotarians, and guests. Please let's take the following announcement for today. We are being reminded of our World Polio Day, which comes off on the 24th of October. It's a Saturday and it's happening in Kumasi. a bus is being arranged to convey people to Kumasi for the celebration of the World Polio Day celebration. And the bus leaves on the 23rd, and we return on Sunday. So please, if you will be able to make it for the trip, can you send me your name or send your name to the president, and then we will follow up with other information as well. Thank you very much. That's what I have for today.
Okay, thank you, Rotary Blanks, for taking us through the announcement. Well, I would like to also add that members are reminded to continuously pay their dues. Those who haven't done so, please, you will be reminded to do so. Kindly send your dues to the treasurer and it will be acknowledged. Thank you. I will also, before we continue, I would like to acknowledge our Assistant Governor, AG William, who has just joined us. AG William, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening.
Please, you have a word for us?
No, not at this moment. Just wish us all a great meeting. I think it's a very important topic, and as many of us should focus and ask as many questions as possible.
All right. Thank you so much, AG William. So I would like to introduce our guest speaker for tonight. Is in the person of Dr. Samuel Leigh Hancock. He's the managing director of Emerald Planet TV, and he's been doing a lot of projects in America and all over the world. And we are so privileged to have him to speak to us tonight. And I believe tonight we are going to learn a lot from Dr. Sam. And I want to say we are very grateful for him to have accepted our invitation to fellowship with us tonight. So Dr. Sam, please take over. Thank you. Please unmute your mic. We cannot hear you.
There we go. Thank you very much for letting me be here. And VJ, how do I get my slides up here on the screen? I think it's, I got to be on share, right?
Yes, on the share. Please
Yeah,
share.
okay. Let me get back here. Whoops. Every time I go back to share, it cuts itself off for some reason. I can see you. There we go. Okay. And we got it there. And then share. Is that coming through on your side?
Yes, it's on. You just need to start the slideshow.
Okay. All right. And I need to, let me minimize the side here. Let's see.
Go down, you will have, you need to click the slideshow button.
There we go. Can you see that now?
Now it's clear.
Yes.
Okay.
It's better. We can see it well now.
Okay, let me, what I want to do is reformat the screen so I can see everybody from there. DJ, how do I get so I not have full screen, but partial screen?
You can start.
Oh, here we go. Got it. We got it. I see it. I see it. I see it. Share computer. Recording, record cloud. Well, I don't see it. How do I minimize my screen so I can see you guys?
No, you will have to, on the corner, you will see the photo, your photograph. If you can
All
see.
right.
Above that, you can see a grid line.
Okay, let me also read on the screen the a more detailed profile of Dr. Samuel, as you can see before he takes over. He is actually a Paul Harris Fellow, and he's won the Ruby Award. He's a co-chair of the 3 for the capital. He's actually from the Rotary Club of Washington, D.C. And he, in collaboration with the Pan-African Association, which is an NGO in consultative status with the United Nations and Economic and Social Council, ECOSO, strategic partner of the World Bank Group, that is Connect for Climate, and is also, as I said earlier on, the managing director of Emerald Planet TV. So you can see on the screen a more detailed profile of what Dr. Sam has been involved into. So tonight, you can see that we are very privileged to have him. So Dr. Sam, I hope you are good to go.
Okay, I think I'm good to go. I just wanted to minimize my screen, VJ, and I still don't see the prompt at the top.
You can see your photograph.
I can't see my photograph.
So on the top, you see there are 4 box, 1 line, and you see a grid line, sort of 9 blocks. Click that.
Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, I see 8, and it says for more.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't see it, but anyway, let's move forward. Well, actually, you blessed me by letting me be here, so it's different than I appreciate what President Philip had to say, but it's my pleasure to be with you. And I just think by being Rotarians, we have created what's called the world of Rotary. And I genuinely believe Rotary International, as the only nonprofit that was a permanent member of the United Nations and a founding member of the United Nations, is probably as influence and connection and representation of resources is probably as big as 150 countries around the globe. And I say that in all reverence because we're all part of a sovereign nation on planet Earth. And yet at the same time, Rotary transcends all that in the nature of doing good and allowing us to contribute to others. So that's part of the catalyst for the Emerald Planet International Foundation and the Emerald Planet TV. You can see our logo here. We actually do have this registered, and it's very important because we have probably completed well over 400 different television shows about the green projects, the sustainable projects of Rotary International and local clubs. And so we're really here to help Rotary, serve Rotary, and to take Rotary even further and wider what it's doing. So about us, we started the Emerald Planet TV literally 12 years ago on June the 21st, 2009 in Washington, D.C. And we are now in our 2nd decade. And so we have 2,095 stations we distribute to or make the program available to, let me put it that way, across the United States. And then we have been fully vetted and have been invited into pegmedia.org, which represents 160 million viewers on a day-to-day basis. And that covers almost 29,000 different outlets covering all the United States, all of American territories, all American military bases in the world, anywhere that the American communications and society reach out to, that PEG Media is there. And PEG means public, education, and government. It was started in 1964, and we are planning to put all roughly 2,900 of our television shows on there. We've covered now 103 different countries, and we've had about 2,600 different people that have joined with us. One of the things, and I was talking to some of the participants tonight about the Emerald Trek. The Emerald Trek is something we conceived of many years ago to go to every country and territory on the planet, all 214 countries and territories, and to identify the best practices and the solutions there. And then, so we're in one country, we're sharing it to the other 213 countries and territories. And then we move country to country, looking for the best practices, because if you can see it, you can hear the people that are actually doing it, and you're going to see some of those examples, and from Africa just in the next few minutes. Then you can say, well, if they can do it, I certainly can do it. And so that's what the Emerald Trek is all about. And that's what the Emerald Planet TV is all about, is making sure that we're getting the best practices, the solutions out to the world so that people can say, okay, we can do that. And we certainly want to be able to do that. This will give you an idea of the Trek as we conceived of it just a few years ago. And you can see it really covers virtually all of the Earth. And you can see the areas where we'll be connected either by aircraft or by ship. And then what we want to do is we want to drive. If you can look at the continent of Africa, which is now dead center as far as the world map is concerned, and my understanding is the cartographers now, because of satellite imaging, has the African continent in its true proportional size to the rest of the Earth, because evidently before it was undersized according to, you know, its true size, but also the number of people and the scope and scale of its importance as far as natural resources and all that. And so what we want to do is we want to go across around all of the African continent. But now what we want to do as roads are coming in and there's better transportation is, if we can, we want to go drive through all of this, but very energy efficient or all electric vehicles. And in many cases, which we're going to talk about at the very end, is about Jatropha, to be able to produce our own biodiesel as we travel. It could be out of Jatropha, which is a very high quality oil seed, maybe 47% oil. And the Jatropha seed, a few others, palm oil and coconut oil is a little bit higher, but both of those are actually foodstuffs for humans and some animals. Jatropha is not, to our knowledge, food stock really for anyone as an oil. And so, and also it grows in very marginalized areas. And so that's why we really focus on Jatropha as for biodiesel, and then leave the more fertile soil and land, agricultural land, open for other various oils, but would be used for human and animal consumption. One of the things that we were talking about in Abuja, Nigeria today, we're part of a team that's working on what's called Abuja 50, and you'll see that poster and information about that in the next few minutes. But without power in today's world, where everybody wants to be connected by the Internet of Things and by telecommunications, which is through the cell phones, is ubiquitous and it's everywhere. Without power, you just can't operate in a modern society. You can be marginalized, you can be on the edge of society. Some people, survivalists, are actually doing that, and there's various tribal areas where they're not so concerned about electrical power, and we even have some of those societies within the United States itself. But for the majority of the world's 7.2, 7.3 billion people, it's a lot of people, and it's growing every day, is that you need electrical power. And so it's very, very important. And that's one of the things that we look at as far as the power for peace, because with power, with water, those two things, most anyone then can develop a society, even if it's a local, your own household as an example, or a local village, or a small town, anywhere, you can start developing your own environment and your own economy out of that. And that's the Power for Peace. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Power for Peace, this is what some of this very small scale, really off the shelf. Many of these things are handcrafted, can be handcrafted. That's why we're showing this, because these could easily be made in Ghana and various areas of India and Pakistan, all over the world, and use these as far as local telecommunications centers and wide area networks, and also for security, for water pumping, for a magnitude of uses. And you can see multiple uses here, and the little sign in the lower right hand of the screen, you can see both solar power and wind power being used. And that's happening more and more, where you're using solar by day, battery backup, and then wind by night. But anything here that you see, we can discuss a little later. Everything you're seeing here are working projects. Most of these actually are on the African continent. Some of these are actually have been used in India. A lot of this technology actually was developed for Pakistan, Afghanistan, very isolated areas. And so like this small water pumper in the upper left-hand corner, this is something we even proposed for Liberia, down in Buchanan, which was the original capital of Liberia. And also now we're proposing this for the Gambia, which is in essence a river-wide country on the west coast of Africa. These little pumpers, once you take them out of the crate, put them beside a stream or a pond or a river or a small or large body of water, you can have small businesses, primarily female businesses, starting out of this, selling pure water. And you can start your own business in about 60 minutes, literally 60 minutes. And a lot of these things, it's the same thing, is that you're doing something that's very small, it's doable, low cost. Now we know that there's many communities where low cost, they're living on, $1 or $2 a day. And what we want to do is to take, these kinds of technologies, provide the basic infrastructure that's needed out of this, again, harnessing the sun. And then if you look again in this lower right-hand corner, as you're facing your screen at home or on your cell phone, you'll see these wind turbines, and that's why you're not losing any energy from that area, whether it's from the sun or the wind, night or day. This particular photograph in the center at the bottom, this is actually on the African continent, and what you see in the middle is the local town market. And in there, these are all 100% solar panels, which are the roof of this. And inside there, there's about 30 different little businesses, virtually all female owned, that are using the energy from the solar panels there to charge batteries, to have, charge cell phones, to cook, to dry food, to do all kinds of things. And so these are practical examples of what can be done. One of the things that we've talked about, instead of going out and trying to introduce products, services, technologies, and processes just to the world, but have a place where the world comes together and everyone can exchange with each other. And so I've always been a firm believer since literally almost my babyhood, when I started reading National Geographic, or actually having National Geographic read to me by my mother. That was my nursery rhymes at night, was National Geographic. And so the whole thing about it is to have this virtual mall, calling the Emerald Mall, and then allow goods and services, products, technologies from whatever country it is to be posted in this mall. And then the exchange would be between people themselves, or even the Rotary clubs could do it as fundraisers for their clubs, a way to pay for their local community service projects, their international service projects, give money during times of disasters, but to go out and actually have a what's called a responsible corporation or responsible company that is actually a social good, where it looks like a business company, but actually it's working in environmental, economic development, and community development projects as a public or a social good. So this mall physically exists. We took a photograph of it. This is in Richmond, Virginia, but the mall that we're talking about here would be virtual. We have the initial designs of that, and that's something that we want to pursue forward. The unique things about Emerald Planet, I've been doing this for a number of decades now, and I've met tens of thousands of people all over the globe. And actually, I have about 95,000 almost people that either I've met directly or have been in seminars. As an example, when I was in the Congo DRC and Kinshasa, I gave a presentation on green mining for gold, silver, coltan, and other things. And there was 13,000 pastors, rabbis, imams, others were in that building, and then their families were there. So it was absolutely packed to talk about this whole concept of how do you bring small business into villages that before are under-resourced, or maybe they're not even on a cash economy. Most of what happens is a barter situation. And so our whole thing is that in the modern world where you need energy, you need all these resources to improve the standard of living, quality of life. If you want to, that's up to each individual and to their communities, but to at least allow them to join modern society. Moving into the seventh area, and that's really what today is all about, but I wanted to give you some information about the Emerald Planet TV, is that we've been collaborating with a group out of San Francisco, California, and then out of Minnesota to actually have this approved, the seventh major area, seventh major focus of Rotary International, which is supporting the environment. And this is something that's called RCATS. This is Rotary Climate Action Team, Rotary Climate Action Team. And so we're very much involved with them. And what we're going to do is we're going to provide all of our television programs, which now number about 800, and the number of individual shows are about 2,900. That's a lot of content. And that's all about the best practices and the solutions we've been able to identify. And that's why VJ is being very, very kind to me and Emerald Planet, and Rotary President Philip there in Ghana is being very kind and supportive of us, because we're looking out to you, whether our Rotarian from Canada, the Rotarian from Karachi and Pakistan, our good Rotarian friend from Nepal, where we're working on the Great Himalayan Parkway, and that will impact literally hundreds of different villages and communities, and it's 508 miles long. But all these things in aggregate, Rotary is actually probably doing more environmental projects, more to try to reverse climate change than any other organization on planet Earth. And that's not an understatement, because if you look at 35,000 clubs, that's what we have to look at, 35,000 clubs. And then depending on whose numbers you're looking at, 1.2 or 1.4 million members and roughly 200 countries and territories. So we basically cover every country and territory on planet Earth, are involved in some kind or many different Rotary projects. Mine and my club, the main one that I'm helping to chair, co-chair, is Trees for the Capital, where we've been planting trees. This is the 30th year, our 30th anniversary, and we've been planting trees in downtown Washington, D.C. So if you see the cherry trees around the tidal basin each spring and the countdown to the cherry blossoms, virtually all those trees now have been paid for by our Rotary Club, which is a Rotary Club of Washington, D.C. in Rotary District 7620. So we've been at this for a long, long time. Rotary International is now catching up to that. And they've put $18 million into this particular area of focus, and that will only grow over time as climate change becomes worse. Now, what we're getting to is you're going to start seeing some areas that maybe you've seen before, maybe even see some faces that you know in here. But these are some of the television programs that we've done. So I put the titles in here so you can understand it. And this is only a sample. I think I have 7 or 8 samples out of 2,900 plus television shows that we've created, and these are 7 samples. So not great samples, but it goes across what we're doing. But this creating a new generation environmentalists for Nigeria, the African continent, and the world. And this comes specifically out of the Rotary Club of Abuja Ministers Hill. And I don't know if any of their members are here today, or the district director, Ayai, is here. But this is a tremendous project. And in what we're doing as far as the Abuja 50, which is actually a PPA, public-private agreements, is to remove all that smog and haze you're seeing down there hanging over Abuja itself. So when you get up to the top of this small mount, and literally in the center of Abuja, you'll look down and you can see everything very clearly, because that haze is mostly created by dirty diesel, and you have that in many of the major cities throughout the African continent. This is the one that's been done by a group that's at George Washington University Hospital in Washington, D.C. And the whole thing is to move the world away from animal proteins, which is very, in many ways, wasteful of natural resources, as well as feed grains, even fiber and water, into a plant-based diet. So you see the title of this one was Learn, Cook, Live, Plant and Tree-Based Food to Save Humanity, Save the Planet. And so you can reduce the amount of GHGs, greenhouse gases, are being emitted, reduce the amount of methane that's being emitted by large animal processing areas and feeding lots, and to make this a much more wholesome diet for humans, and actually even for a number of the animals that we humans love and enjoy and take care of. But again, this is another focus of us as far as sustainable agriculture, sustainable nutrition. This is in the country of Kenya. This is one of the Rotary clubs right outside of Nairobi. And this is about WashRag, which is the water and sanitation Rotary Action Group. Very important. This particular Rotary Club has had, I think, 7 or 8 water projects. We featured 4 very different ones during this particular program, Rotary International WashRag, the Future of Water and Sanitation in East Africa. And so it's very, very important to highlight these clubs, what they're doing, the impact they're having. And if you'd see the 4 communities, there were 4 very different projects. One of them is where they had small solar cells, actually, that were helping to pump water to a number of schools and communities. You had a very marginalized community of widows and their children that were literally put into out in the western part of Kenya, literally on the edge of the desert. And they really had no way for obtaining sufficient amount of water, nor to have sustainable nutrition. And once this water project came in, they could do all of that. Another one was a community of Maoris, which are primarily cattle herders. And so they needed water for their cattle. And so this club did that. So it's amazing diversity and doing excellent projects, but this is something else that you could be doing there in Ghana and other places. This is actually across the river from Washington, D.C., which is America's capital city. This is a city called Alexandria, an old legacy city, goes back to the latter part of the 1600s, early 1700s. Very beautiful area right across the river, the Potomac River, from Washington, D.C. But what they're doing is they're out picking up the trash, and you can see that they are surrounded by nature, yet they're literally in the middle of the city. And this is what you call a built environment. But look at all the trash that's been thrown down by people that are jogging, they're riding their bikes, or out walking their children or grandchildren, or out, playing baseball, football, whatever it may be. And yet they're throwing their trash, on the land in the park, which is something that no one should be doing. And then if you look at the kayaks and canoes over here on the bottom right, they're actually cleaning up what's called the 4-mile run. It's actually as wide as a river, but it's really a stream, very short, but very important as far as the ecology of this area. So they're out in their boats. They do this twice a year, just like they go out and collect the trash by the walkways and driveways and the fields, the ball fields, and to keep the trash picked up. And this is a very American trait. And I know that Rotary has expanded this type of community service all over the globe of where people volunteer. And I know that from the clubs that are exhibited in this Zoom meeting today through Ghana and Fiji of India, many of his clubs in India are doing these self-help or volunteer days. The same thing, I'm sure, probably in Ghana and even Nepal and other places. This is about pandemics. This is George Mason University is in Northern Virginia. This is about the howler monkey, and they reside in the rainforest in Brazil. And they found out that there's many things that they can study for this howler monkey that may even relate to Ebola, which is in the west coast of Africa, the coronavirus 19, SARS, many of the pathogens and the viruses. Evidently, this particular mammal is very conducive to doing that kind of research and not harm the mammal himself. So you see this topic here, research into pandemics, the environment and sustainable resilience, best practices at George Mason University. And also too, as this could happen with the various universities and colleges, even the high schools, even quite K-12 actually, in Ghana, Pakistan, Nepal, Canada, and all that. And I know the Canadians do much research through their very excellent university system in Canada, and I'm sure your countries as well. This is something I serve on the board of Natural Partners. This is a television program about what's called the Next Generation Science Standards, NGSS, preparing future generations through interactive and nature-based curricula featuring the monarchs, they're butterflies, and you can see it there, of pollinators. The monarchs travel over almost 3,000 miles from light, end to end as far as their birth and then to depth. And they go from Newfoundland, which is in Canada on the East Coast. And there's different areas where they have the monarchs in Canada going back and forth to Mexico, but they cross the United States and go into a particular forest in Michoacan, Mexico. And that's where they winter, and then they travel back north spring and summer. But we have about 50 schools, and that's expanding every year, where they're actually taking their science studies out of doors. And so these students are standing in gardens that were planted by their earlier classmates, maybe 3 or 4 years older than they are. And so now they're beneficiaries of these, what they call butterfly gardens, butterfly flyaways, and they'll be planting their plants. And this continues now for multi-generational. And I think this is probably in its first decade, maybe a little bit longer at that. But this is all about pollinators and why various insects, bats, larvae, anaerobic, aerobic bacteria, the microorganisms that live in the soil are so important to the food supply of humans on planet Earth. And so again, you see the diversity of topics that we have. This is something that has just started. We've had 3 of these programs now, so we're getting ready for episode 4. It's called Africa's Titans, Women Transforming a Continent. And I left off the other words, from within. And so this is something to highlight outstanding women leaders from all 54 countries on the African continent. I think we've covered either 6 or 7 countries, but I want us to have at least one African Titan from each of the 54 nations. And we're working with a women's organization, actually 2 different organizations in Washington, D.C. on this particular series. And we're getting ready to start a green series with a different female orientation and focus in December of 2020, or maybe pushed into January of 2021. But this has proven to be a very popular program. Going to Abuja and the Abuja 50, you see some of the partners that are involved here. And Magnific is the project lead for the Abuja Technology Village Free Zone Company. This is actually almost 700 hectares, about 2,140 acres. This is a huge project. And eventually about 1 million people are going into now what's called a brownfield area. This was marginalized land, or even some of it abandoned land. It was such bad shape. And so they set up this public-private partnership, PPP, and now they're issuing PPAs, public-private agreements for the solar power that's going to be generated for this massive project. Africa Kilowatt, which is both an American and African-based company, is the technical lead on this. And of course, Emerald Planet Foundation, the Emerald Planet TV, we're part of that as far as being able to cover the green aspects of this and the technology and best practices. We just had this today. This is 15th of October, 2020. this afternoon, and actually some of the people in your audience tonight actually witnessed this, just to give you an idea of the mix of people that are involved in this. 4 continents, about 8 different countries represented here. And so this is truly an international project in literally downtown Abuja. This Abuja Technology Village is 15 minutes from the international airport by drive, 15 minutes from literally downtown Abuja by car. So very centrally located, key to not only what's happening as far as Abuja and Nigeria, but this is to be a living example of what can be done in all 53 other countries around the African continent, and of course overseas, anywhere else, Southeast Asia, the small island nations in the Pacific, and on and on. This is what the power looks like now. You see these what we call dirty diesel, and they say maybe as much as 85% of the electrical power comes out of these very dirty diesels. It's very expensive to run these things. And so by the time you pay for your diesel and your power, there's not much left as far as profit or any reinvestment into your company, or pay for the fees and all that to run your university or run the hospital. This is unfortunately spread across every organization, including residences in Nigeria and probably most of the countries around there. And that will give you an idea of what an electric pole looks like. It's spaghetti, it's terrible. So the going back here, if you look one more, the ATV and Magnific, what they're doing is they're working to eliminate power poles above ground. Everything going into the ATV is below ground, underground, protected from any kind of harsh elements or windstorms, what have you. And then the eliminate the dirty diesel. So multiple benefits in all of this going on here. This is what this looks like. This is an artist concept, but everything that you see, this ground that you see in front of you, is all generated by the computer, CG. Actually, all of this now has roadways, it has water lines, it has the fiber optics, and virtually all of the infrastructure now has actually already been put in place. And now what they're doing is the first 2 buildings about the middle of this photograph have already been contracted for and will be built starting next month in November. And so it's amazing. This has taken probably over a decade to get to this, where we're looking at it right now. And now it's actually ready to happen. But the key to all this, of course, is electrical power. And that's going to be 100% by solar right now. And I'll show you the solar panels in a minute. Also, there 50% of the buildings in this development will have green roofs, maybe plants, even trees, but it'll be for solar generation. But this is a type of system, very, very simple. You got the solar collectors, you have the inverters and the switching and the electric meters and things like that. Nothing complicated or sophisticated necessarily about this. But what's really important about this is the battery backup. So you're topping off the batteries every day you have sunshine, and then I'll give you days when you have rainfall from the typhoon. Then you still can be generating electricity and have electricity. So that's part of this whole process. These are what some of the solar panels will look like. This is some projects that have been done elsewhere. So you're going from the dirty diesel to the solar panels. I put this up again, just go to show you that this is a real international mix. This is also a mix within Nigeria from local, city, and federal government there. And then you have funders both within Nigeria, coming from both Europe and the United States. And then you have Mr. Chung there from China that's doing the technical development as far as installing equipment. And they were chosen because that's what they do in China, is install the solar. Now, one of the things that I was talking with President Philip about, and also mentioned to VJ, this is the Jatropha plant. Many people call it a tree. It's really not a tree. It's a shrub. It's a bush. Very pretty. My understanding is it grows all over Ghana. We developed a project for Uganda about 6 or 7 years ago, which is now looks like it actually may start taking legs and be viable. We seem to have a champion within Uganda now, but this was going to be as collecting all the seeds from across any area where the Jatropha is growing naturally, or maybe it's growing and grows, and then turn that into biodiesel. The Jatropha seed has about 47% plus or minus average oils. It's fairly inexpensive to convert it into biodiesel. And then the biodiesel is very clean burning. It has virtually no hydrocarbons or the heavy pollutants that you have in the fossil fuel diesel. But the Jatropha tree does a lot of different things. So if you look at it, the leaves, fever, infection, tumor, so the medical properties of it. The oil seeds there, oil, infectious diseases, biofuel. Then the latex, it has the various agents that can be used for putting that in a type of rubber. And then the roots, again, for medical purposes. And so there's many benefits to this. And one of the beautiful things about this, this is the seeds, one of the varieties of the seeds. And once this dries and then can be processed, extracting the oil, and this almost can go from here, do the purification process, then it really can become an oil. This will give you an idea of the oil seeds. Every one of these seeds you see here has a certain percentage of oil. And so the reason for Jatropha, because it's suitable for acidic soil, it's suitable for areas that have high intense sun. It's for areas with what we call marginalized or spent agricultural areas. It's no longer in productivity because the soil has been completely farmed out. And also this can use to stabilize deserts. As you know, the Sahara Desert is moving further and further south all the time. And so this is a way to bring in a plant that actually can stop those sand dunes from continually moving south, stabilize them, and not quite, but almost can grow in that type of just sandy soil. But Jatropha grows in very harsh areas. It needs virtually no inputs as far as any kind of organic root stimulant, insecticides, pesticides, because its leaves, it gives off a mist which protects it from all kinds of vermin that want to attack it. And it's right in the middle as far as being productive as an oil. But you can see all the others over there, and some of them are viable. Not many people are going to take coffee these days and turn it into biofuel, but there may be enough in some communities where they can do that. But cocoa, anyway, you can see all the different seeds that give off oil could be used for biodiesel. This will give you the amount of kilograms of oil per hectare. liters of oil, pounds oil per acre, depending on how you want to measure it. But jatropha is a very potent source of oil for making the biodiesel. And then you see the coconut and oil palm there. I highlighted those, but underlined the jatropha. Jatropha is ideal for putting on spent lands. And I use that term, spent lands, meaning, you really can't use it for anything else. You can't use it for grazing because it doesn't grow the grass. It's not even growing the very slow growing desert shrubs that, goats and sheep and even cattle and camels and other wildlife feed off of, where coconut and oil palm is very important for human consumption and for use as oils for cooking and all that. Jatropha, you would not use it for cooking. And so that's why we emphasize jatropha. Also, too, you can have this in these marginal lands. Many of them are growing native. And so people, as we've talked about this in Uganda, they say, oh, I have 3 of those in my backyard and I didn't even know what it was. And so the whole thing about it is that, again, it can stabilize the soil. You don't need to use inputs. It's out there. You can ignore it. And then when it starts producing its fruit, they drop, meaning the oil seeds, then you go and collect them. And then that becomes a community project or maybe a plantation project or a family project, depending on the size of the processing unit itself. And it's very easy really to make. And and we'll show you one of the small machines that would be good for a cooperative. This is all the things that it's good for. You see the leaves, fruits, the make into latex, and then all the way down to, oil, seed cake, and seed husk. Those are for fuel, and the seed cake really is and mostly for cooking. But that would be up to who is there, how they want to use it for. This is a very small unit. Actually, I designed one. I've actually built 2, but this is an entire center for processing the jatropha oil, or any oil actually, and turning that into biodiesel. And I sent a handout a little bit about that, but there's actually very precise directions on how you convert from the oil seed itself, extracting the oil, what that goes through, all the way through to producing the oil, and then having it ready for biodiesel. This is the process. It looks very complicated. Actually, there's about 4 or 5 major steps that you go through in all of this. And this is what it looks like. It looks a little bit like honey. And when it's combusted, and the engines, if you're using the fossil diesel now, fossil diesel, they get very dirty inside. They have burnt hydrocarbons and all that. This is a high surfactant, so it actually cleans out the engine. And they say the engines actually run much cooler than using the fossil diesel. They say if you take an engine apart after you run this for maybe 4 to 6 weeks, when you take the engine apart and lay out the pistons and the rings and everything, it actually looks almost like, not almost, it looks like a brand new engine, because all the hydrocarbons have been cleaned out of it by the biodiesel. And that's one of the reasons that if you're using the petrodiesel, it's very dirty burning. It's got heavy metals and heavy particulate matter in it, and highly greenhouse gas emissions and all that. This does not have all of that same negative impact on the environment, even though it is a biomass product, yet it's not sending the pollution. And most of this, all you're seeing coming out of the tailpipe is steam. This is not a great photograph, but this is actually processing the seeds and going through and crushing. And you can see the ladies here have collected the seeds, bringing it in, and then it's going through the crusher to extract the oil, and then you can make other products out of the husk, out of the kernel, all that. And so I'm going to stop right here, President Philip. I need to get back to you, and so I can see you. And if I can, VJ, I'd like to keep this up on the screen somehow, if that's possible. And so let me end the PowerPoint, and let me come back to you and see if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sam. So please, if you have a question, raise your hand and you'll be given the opportunity.
Now, I couldn't see you, so I hope that I was with you the whole time. Nobody, VJ didn't batter me for being, MIA, being absent in action. So I guess the slides came through. But anyway, if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Dr. Sam, George is here from Abuja Ministers.
Who is here?
George.
Oh, okay.
George from Abuja Ministers.
We have Jen Imbera who has a question. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Sam, for that. Very informative. My question is about scale. If I want to do a community development and empowerment for women, especially, especially in Africa, where we have limited land in terms of scale, I don't know how much that would entail and the benefits overall, and probably a population it would benefit. I know you have the experience. I just want to hear what you have seen around in Africa. Thank you.
Yeah, and you have one of the largest, marginalized communities on the African continent right there, and literally in downtown Nairobi. And there's hundreds of small-scale businesses, and one of those can be water. You saw that little pumper up there that can do about 500 gallons a day, all by solar power. That could be bought through a woman's water co-op, for lack of a better term, or a farmer's co-op. And you could take very dirty, you can actually take brown water and turn it in the size of that pumper into pure drinking water within, takes no time to do that. You just put it through there, and then you can do a reverse to wash it. So it's very simple to do that. Also, too, there's a group out of Sweden, and it's called People, spelled P-E-P-O-P-L-E, P and poo, right? And they have a system, and this is actually in this area in Nairobi, but they're spreading around the African continent where there's no indoor plumbing, and maybe they're using toilets, not the waterless type, which we actually we promote very well. But the People is actually you have these little buckets, where the bodily waste, and it could be food waste, it could be anything that goes into this. And so what people do is that you bring it in, they weigh it, you keep a log of how much you're bringing in, and then these stations take a Kenyan shilling or two, as far as processing of that. But it goes out to areas where they take and they hold it for about 3.5 to 4 months, make it sterilized, and then it comes back for growing vegetables and herbs in the same homes where the peat pool came from. It's an amazing system. Very, very simple, very clever, and very cheap. I think it's equivalent to 1 US cent a day to process the waste for a family of 6. 1 US cent, and none of it's thrown out on the ground. None of it's going into the ditches, which is feeding the mosquitoes for malaria and flies and all these other kinds of things. To the gardening, the whole thing about it, even in the United States, we have a large project in Jacksonville, North Carolina, we're starting. That's going to be 12,000 tiny homes. These are homes that are about 560 plus or minus square feet, about 56 square meters. They're highly energy efficient. They withstand hurricane winds up to 145 miles an hour. And they are very comfortable summer and winter. They actually produce more electrical energy if you have solar panels than they use, so they can actually sell it to the electric grid, what's going to happen in Abuja 50, but it'll be house by house. But going to the way of growing food now is actually taking people's backyards, taking their window seals. In other words, these little boxes, you see the little cute flower boxes on people's windows. These are now becoming gardens, so people can actually feed themselves. And so you don't need much land whatsoever. It's just how do you look at whatever resource you have around you, or as we're doing more and more and actually in downtown Washington, D.C., Detroit, Michigan, Flint, Michigan, different legacy cities in the United States, where they're using their backyards, putting in what's called grow boxes. All these things are on our website. You can see these, and most of these can be made out of scraps. So you don't need to buy a lot of these things. And so you have the grow boxes, you grow your own vegetables. It can be tomatoes, cucumbers, cabbage, peas, could be even corn for maize, other green crops, herbs. And then what we talk about is that you take what used to be called solar cookers, and they still call them solar cookers, but you got a planet now of 7.3 or 4 billion people, and there's about 2 million of these solar cookers. And then other people are desperate for fuel to cook their food or warm their houses or what have you. So what we've advocated, instead of using it as something that doesn't seem to be catching on very well, the solar cooking, the solar dryers. So you grow your vegetables in your grow box or your window seal, whatever excess you have is dry it during the bonus season, in other words, the rainy season when things are growing. And then when you get to the dry season or you have a drought, then you have this dry food that then you can take and sell in the marketplace or eat it for, family consumption. And so if you look at the roughly 2,600 best practices we have on the Emerald Planet website, those are things there to do just about anything that you actually need. And everything on there is a public service. We charge for nothing, and we do not charge for the television programs either. We do that as a public service. And you saw the one that we did in downtown Abuja. You saw the one we did right outside of Nairobi, Kenya. And we want to, part of the trek is to find as many, and I'm looking for 10,000, literally 10,000 different best practices for anything in the green space. So it's really looking at what's around you as an asset and not the fact of what you don't have is how we look at it. Does that help?
Very much so. Thank you so much. I think I'll reach out. Very rich.
Yeah, you can reach out, and then I'll introduce you to the Rotarians that had those water projects. They are incredible projects. They're small. They had international sponsorship. They had international districts and clubs collaborating with them. But if you look at the difference, it's just like they're in different countries. They're so different.
We are really
and
running
with
out
their
of time, so I'll take
communities.
one last question.
What's that? Did somebody say something?
So I'll take one more question. Rotarian Baptista, I saw your hand.
Okay.
Thank you, RP Philip. Great presentation, Dr. Sam. I wanted to find out if Jatropha is a second generation biofuel. Thank you.
Is Jatropha a second generation biofuel? Is that what you ask?
Yes, please.
Okay, and when you say second generation, how do you mean that? Because you're taking the seed, you saw the seeds, right? They generate oil, a little different amount depending on the, the type of Jatropha shrub that you have. That is crushed. You saw the ladies with the crushing machine right there before you saw the biodiesel fuel itself. And then you're using the biomass for other kinds of processes and projects. But that oil then would go through the purification process. We won't get into all the technical details of it, but anyway, it's that you're converting that raw oil into the biodiesel. And there's various catalysts that you can do that. Some of them are toxic and others are not toxic at all. And so that's the thing you want to be careful about, is what catalyst are you using to convert that into the biodiesel. But you can take that biodiesel and then be able to sell that, store it and sell it in the communities. And then instead of having people use the petrodiesel, which is in most cases it's being imported, maybe not so much in Nigeria and some of the Northern Africa oil and natural gas producing countries. But a lot of countries, even like Ghana, which now is becoming a major oil and natural gas producer, why use your own oil and burn it in cars and pollute your own environment? Sell it to, the silly Americans, the silly whoever's, and produce your own biodiesel and let the farmers, male and female, and the children benefit from that and let them earn a living wage. The whole thing about this is earning a living wage so that people then can send their children to school, they can have health care, they contribute to their community of faith, regardless of what religion they are. They increase the nutrition that they have. They start to work on producing and eliminating malaria. We got technologies for that. So there's so many ways you can develop small green businesses out of these best practices. And a lot of these things are not expensive at all. And like the solar dryers, they can be done purely out of scrap, out of trash. And you go out and pick it up in your neighborhood. If you've got, the right combination, they can do that and start drying their food and actually earning an income. So, the imagination is in many cases the only limiting factor. And it's just a fact of that's why we want to collect all of these green best practices and then put it back out into the Rotary world and the greater world.
All right, thank you,
So
Doc.
back to you, President Philip and PPVJ and everyone else.
Philip, Simran has also raised the hand, if you can allow her one.
Okay, so we'll take one last question from Rotarian Shida. That will be our
Simran,
last
yes.
question for tonight.
I'm here, so I'll stay with you as long as you want. So I have a Zoom meeting tonight at 9 o'clock with the Russians. So between now and then, I'm with you.
Simranji, you had a question, I believe. He's not responding. You can continue, I think.
Okay, so what we're going to do is after the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
She
Please go
may have
ahead.
said
May I?
something. Did you have a question?
Yes, I want. Thank you, Phillips. It was a fantastic and insightful presentation, Dr. Sam. I just want to ask how we can start this kind of a project in our country. What do you suggest for us in our country,
Well,
Pakistan?
I hear you. It really depends on where you are. And I think you're talking about Pakistan. Which country?
Yes, yes.
Pakistan. Okay. Each country is going to be a little different. But the India has vast plantations of jatropha. That was a way they thought they would get out of the oil crisis when the oil was so high, and then of course the oil prices dropped. But the whole thing about that's very short-sighted, is that what you're doing is now, instead of saying, well, we can buy this from X country somewhere and it's cheaper than maybe producing jatropha, but what is the actual economic and social cost to India to be bringing this imported oil in, and then not creating maybe 50, 100,000, 1 million jobs where people are gainfully employed, earning a living wage, where if you're just importing gasoline or petrol or diesel or the raw crude and then processing it, all that money's going out. And you're expending hard exchange, letting it go out. What you want to do is you want in each of your villages, and we can talk about this offline or after when you have the social hour, but take each village, even each house. And this goes back to the question, Jane, did you ask the question about the land and all that, how to use it? Was that your question?
Yes, it was part of it as well. Yes.
Okay. All right. I want to go back to that because that's really a beautiful, beautiful question. And this really goes to Pakistan, is that how do you create your family? We're doing this now in the United States. It's just now catching on, I should say, but what's called a family corporate trust. Family corporate trust. That's a very legal thing under the rules of the Internal Revenue Service of the United States. But what you do is that you incorporate the mom and dad and kids. They become a corporation. They have their own business. And then what they do, they may do people. They may do jatropha. The one son does, he's making apps for cell phones. And someone else is working as a nurse at the local hospital or the health center. But everybody's pooling their money. And all of a sudden you go from a family who is marginalized, they barely can eat, they really are not getting the education they need and all that. All of a sudden, they have real hard assets. And so you teach them how to save, how to have bank accounts, start investing in themselves as their own business, their own corporation. And then if you do that, let's say you have 100 homes, 100 families in a small village. Well, all of a sudden you have 100 small businesses that didn't exist before. And now they're generating, and they start trading and doing things among themselves. And I saw this in India, VJ. I went to both Hindu and Muslim communities, and the imams allowed me to come in and sit, as long as I behaved myself, sit back in the corner. And these women taught me about how they were actually setting up their own small scale businesses. And it was amazing, the work they were doing. In some of these villages, they would clean the tank with the money that they're making. They had no malaria in that particular community. That was just one thing. So the kids weren't getting sick. The kids were going to school because they were making now money, and it was open. They weren't trying to sneak around someone. They were pooling their monies, and all of a sudden the kids were able to go to school. And it's amazing what you do if you just reorient the perspective of the world and how you fit into that. Whether you're a under-resourced community, you may be a cultural minority in some of these areas, but the cultural minorities can band together, have their own co-ops, do the same kind of thing, have their own family corporations, and start trading among themselves. So you're empowering people, but the one focus really is the females. The one focus is the female, because they're the ones that have to take care of the children. And us guys, you know, we say, oh, we're in charge of everything. The women are the linchpin of development in the 21st century. And I want to say that publicly because it's absolutely the truth. And so that's why we try to feature as many females on Emerald Planet TV as we possibly can. So I'll be glad to talk with anybody offline. But you know, like I said, we have over 2,900 shows. So there's 2,900 different ways of doing something. Okay. Thank you very much for letting me be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think Dr. Sam is going to be with us after the meeting ends. So if you
I'll
have
be
any,
happy to. Yeah, I'm
Good.
here. Let's do it.
So if you have any question, please, let's hold it after the meeting. You can still chat with him. I have some other question, but I think after the meeting, I'm going to ask those questions. Thank you so much. So I will give our charter president the honor to give us the vote of thanks tonight. Charter President Kingsley. Charter President, can you unmute?
Yeah, thank you, Rotarian President, fellow Rotarians. I just want to say this is a fantastic presentation by Dr. Sam. I think we've been educated, and we want to thank you very much. And I think this discourse is going to continue offline because it's a very important aspect of the getting clean energy to make sure that the environment is protected. On behalf of Rotary of Tema Meridian, and also the collaboration we have from Vijay, we just want to say thank you very much, Dr. Sam.
My
Want
pleasure.
to anytime we call upon you, you will be willing, and then because of the tight schedule, because your project is going to take you to places and your time is going to be limited. So thank you very much.
If I could follow on, Kingsley, to what you're just saying, I want to be very busy. I really want to dedicate the next 5 years to travel the globe, or maybe do it virtually on the Emerald Trek. So I really want to get to those 10,000 different best practices. And there's probably 100,000, maybe 1 million. Even at 10,000, we're just scratching the surface, but we want to get it out. And Vijay is a shining example of how to do that, because he's reaching out using Zoom. We use whereby.com for our television interviews, and we've used those now, maybe 16 different shows no more than that now, 24 shows on the African continent just during the 7 days of the coronavirus shutdown. It works beautifully. And so we can go anywhere with that. And I'm literally sitting right in my television studio right now. It's a virtual studio. And 8 days after the shutdown here in the United States, I opened this studio, and it works fantastic.
Oh, great, great. That's good. Thank you very much. And we want to thank you for making our day.
No, you make my day just being with all of you.
My Charter President, and once again, Dr. Sam, we want to thank you so much for making time to be with us tonight. So fellow Rotarians and guests, if you have any question, please don't go, stay behind after the meeting and interact with Dr. Sam. So we'll move to the next on the agenda, which is our fines and our donation. So this is the numbers of visiting Rotarians and guests. If you want to support the club to also undertake a lot of these green projects, please, you can send a mobile money to the number on the screen, and we will recognize it and appreciate it. So The number again is 0244-242051. So we thank you in advance. Can we have the revenue and attendance report before we do the raffle?
Hi, good evening once again. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, please. We can hear you.
Okay, so for today, our attendance for today recorded a peak attendance of 48 Rotarians and guests, which consisted of 18 clubs from 10 different countries. That's the attendance we recorded for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we move on to raffle?
Okay, I would like to share my screen, please.
Okay.
Good evening, fellow Rotarians and guests. Today we're going to have our raffle for the day. So what we're going to do is that we're going to take the winning ticket and then the losing tickets. We have limited the raffle to Rotarians and guests in Ghana. So please kindly go through the list. If you can't see, please let me know. If you can't see your name, just let me know. I will add it to it. So I'll scroll up so that you can go through the list and let me know if your name is not in.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, all right, sure. Thank you. So the winning ticket, please. Congratulations, PP McDay. Is he still around? Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Congratulations. You are the winner for today. Our treasurer he would get in touch with you and give you your prize for today. Thank you very much for taking part.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Okay, so we take the losing ticket for the day. Best of luck. Veteran Nanaya, is it Rotary Club of Kanda or? Hello. Is she still out?
Are you still online?
He left.
Okay, I think she has left. We will contact her and then find how we can get the losing ticket. Thank you so much.
She's from Accra Kanda only. So.
Yes, Accra Kanda.
Accra Kanda.
Okay,
so thank you very much.
Okay.
So we have a guest who joined us tonight. Is it Abraham? Are you a guest?
Hello.
Yes, Abraham. I guess you're a guest, right?
I'm not a guest. I'm just a new member of the Tema Rotary Club, Meridian.
You're a new member?
Yeah.
Prospective member.
Okay. All right. Because I don't know you as a new member.
Okay, prospective member.
Yes, I think that is how you should put it, prospective member. So I thought you were guest invited by, I wanted just to introduce you. So do you have any guest of Tema Meridian who has joined the meeting so that we can introduce you? Because I am not seeing, some did not rename. So if you're a guest of the club, please let us know so that we can acknowledge you. Okay, all right. I think there are no guests tonight. So I will also want to acknowledge some of our visitors. Earlier on, I acknowledge our Assistant Governor, William. We are grateful that you took time to join with us, to fellowship with us tonight. And I also saw President Wole from the Rotary Club of Edward and Stanmore. Please, are you still with us?
He's left.
He's left, okay. All right, and I also saw PAG Chenudu and DG Oyo from Nigeria.
DG Ayo just left and the PAG Chinedu is there.
All right. Okay, so to all our visiting Rotarians from Ghana, we want to thank you so much for making time to fellowship with us, and all our international Rotarians who visited us tonight. We also want to say thank you. In fact, I can't go through the list because of time. Time is fast spent. Otherwise, I would have taken time to acknowledge you personally, but time is not so much on our side. So I want to thank you all for making time to be with us tonight. And we hope next week you'll still join us and fellowship with us. And please send us your meeting invitation as well, and we will also make time to fellowship with you. So on behalf of all members of the club, I want to thank you all again for fellowshipping with us. So I'll ask our past President McDare, the winner for tonight, to depart the house.
Fellow Rotarians, while in our houses, let's pick up our drink and make a toast to Rotary International and to Rotarians wherever they may be.
Rotarians, wherever they may be.
To Rotarians, wherever they may be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then still fellowship till, thank you.